Good evening, everyone. We'd like to start tonight's Planning Commission meeting. If everyone could rise for the pledge to the flag. Okay, our next order is roll call.
Rich Nuttall.
Here.
Tom Piacentino is absent. Peter Tantala. Here. Amber Watson-Tardif, I'm here. Keith Auerswald is absent. Joe Antonelli. Here. Jim Ennis. Dominic Kundari. Matthew Johnston. Here. And Jim Esposito.
Okay, our next item is the approval of our January 7th meeting minutes. Is there any member of the board who reviewed the minutes and has any issues or finds any errors or omissions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion second? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes, excuse me. Next item, S/LD number 26-1, Mark Rusden, applicant and owner, requesting a lot line change at 2340 Lincoln Highway, Langhorne, PA 19047. Tax map parcel 22-057-022 in the general business district, and tax map parcel 22-057-020-006. Property is located at 130 Middletown Boulevard in Langhorne, PA. There was 23 addresses notified. Sir, you have the floor.
Chair, Rich, sorry.
Oh, yes, I missed that. If there is anybody here tonight for the toll gate application that was on the agenda or the Aqua application, they have both canceled for this evening. Just to let you guys know, if you don't want to stick around for the toll gate or the Aqua applications, they both have been canceled. You're up now, so
now
sorry
you're ready.
about that.
Okay. I am Nick Rose from Protract Engineering. I am here on behalf of Mark Rusden, who could not be here this evening. As you know, this is a lot line change, and the plan is coming up on here right now. There's really not much to it other than the fact that if you look in the upper left corner of the plan, I think you might have copies in front of you, you can actually see that the current configuration is quite strange. It's on the top there, well, to the right as you're looking at that screen. There's one small rectangular lot, and then there's a lot along Middletown Boulevard that's quite irregular in shape. The proposal is just to cut a new line across the back of the one property so that they are more equal properties and just more normally shaped. So that's the entire endeavor of what's being proposed before you tonight. In round numbers, one of the lots is about 50,000 square feet right now, one's about 150. They're trading about 50,000, so they'll end up both being just under 100,000 square feet, so a little over 2 acres. So nothing else is proposed at this time. They're just proposing to change the lot line. I understand there was a land development, which I think your engineer noted, originally proposed for the one property that has been withdrawn. So there is no effort being made to pursue that. I could go through the comments in your engineer's letter, or he could, but I don't have any issue with any of them other than there's one waiver we're going to need to ask for.
Okay, I'm actually getting out your paperwork right now. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Looking for the, what waiver are you requesting?
Well, it actually came up in the letter that there is a section in your ordinance that says that not more than, it's not more than 20% of the area should be transferred in a lot line change. And we are actually proposing that both one will receive more than 20% and one will give up more than 20%. I'm not actually sure entirely what the intent of the ordinance was. I don't think it was something intended to apply to this, because this does seem to normalize and reconfigure things in a positive way. So I think formally we need a waiver from that requirement since we're asking to transfer more area. And that is noted at the bottom of the RVE letter. they anticipated that we would ask for that.
Okay.
Other than that, the items in his letter will comply.
Dominic, any questions?
No, no questions. Yeah, that waiver is in our letter, but that's a waiver that we would support. But it is in the ordinance, so we do anticipate that waiver being requested. And as I just stated, that's the waiver we have no issues with.
Matt, anything on your end? No? All right, any questions from the members of the board? Go ahead, Pete.
So yeah, just to clarify, neither of these properties will be aggrieved or encumbered in any way by virtue of this lot line change. Is that right?
Correct. They are both still entirely compliant with the
None's
zoning.
going to be shut out from sewer service or anything of that nature?
No,
Okay.
correct.
And also for clarity, does the waiver actually constitute two waivers, one for each property, or is it considered one waiver?
It would be considered one waiver since the waiver talks about a lot line change and you have to have two
Understood.
properties to actually
Okay.
talk about a lot line change.
Just being clear.
The one thing I wanted to jump in, and he did reference this, was the prior land development. I think we're going to want some sort of note or reference on the plan acknowledging the withdrawal of that prior land development.
And we are fine with that.
Okay.
I do remember we approved a whole little shopping center there years back. Okay, is there any member of the public that would like to speak on behalf of this? Is there anyone here? Seeing none, I don't see a big deal with this myself, so I will ask for, at this point, a recommendation of approval for S/LD 26-1, application proposing a lot line change at 2340 Lincoln Highway and 130 Middletown Boulevard, Langhorne, PA, 19047, Bucks County Tax Map Parcel 22-057-020-006. The property recommendation is based on a plan entitled Lot Line Change prepared for 2340 Lincoln Highway, comprising of one sheet and dated September 30th, 2025. Plan is prepared by Nick Rose, PE of Protract Engineering of Hatboro, PA. Recommendation is further based on compliance with the comments provided. January 30th, 2026 letter from Isaac E. Kessler, PE of Remington and Vernick Engineers, their Middletown Township's engineer. A January 30th, 2026 letter from Matthew D. Johnston, PE of Pannoni Associates, their Middletown Township's traffic and transportation engineer. A waiver from section 440-306 to allow lots to increase or decrease by more than 20% of the original lot area. And should I add Jim's comment on D? Comment D, a note, you wanted a note on the plan, Jim?
It would be a note on the plan clearly stating that the previously approved land application that concerns these properties has been withdrawn.
And that would make D, a note on the plan indicating that the previous approval of land development on the property will be withdrawn. I think I got it all. If we have a motion, I need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Pete, second. All in favor? Aye. You're approved, sir.
Great, thanks for your time.
Have a good night.
So, just leave it here.
Okay. Sorry, I am looking for my agenda meeting. There it is. Item number 4, S/LD 25-4, petition on behalf of Corman Commercial Properties to Middletown Township to seek both a zoning map amendment as well as a zoning ordinance text amendment to allow for rezoning of the aggregate properties referenced in the application to M1 Manufacturing and to establish a new use identified as Logistics Fulfillment Center within the limits of these parcels. Tax parcels 22-015-012-001, 22-015-016, 22-016-131, 22-016-127, 22-016-125, 22-016-124. All are along Lincoln Highway to be rezoned to M1 Light Manufacturing or open space recreation district. Property is located at 2011 West Lincoln Highway. There were 34 addresses notified. Sir, you have the floor.
Good evening, Joe Blackburn from Whistler Pearlstein here on behalf of the applicant, Corman Commercial Properties, with respect to the aforementioned application. We are here tonight in order to advance a conversation that has proceeded on a couple of occasions with respect to both the rezoning of the properties mentioned as well as the various iterations of the zoning text amendment that are before you. I'm joined by the project engineer from Dynamic Engineering, Justin Gennati, and I think it's probably most prudent to, since this is, I think, one of the successive times that we've dealt with this, make sure that we're all dealing from the same playbook here, looking at the same ordinance and reiterating some of the past efforts that have been made and that are kind of persistent through this effort. So I'm going to turn it over to Justin very briefly to give just kind of a project overview and make sure that we're all up to date on the same ordinance and plan. So thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Justin Giannotti with Dynamic Engineering. As Joe said, we were here before you, and this plan has been presented to you previously too. But just to recap, this plan in front of you on the screen here is labeled Existing Zoning Exhibit. This is the assemblage of parcels that was noted by the chairman. What you're going to see on the plan is different shades of colors for different zoning areas. Now, under the existing zoning, you can see the area in purple along the frontage is known as the C Commercial District. You'll see there's 3 pieces of it, sometimes split zoned. There's also a portion that is light blue that is along the Chamonix Creek behind the C Commercial. That is the M1 Light Industrial District that we are proposing to expand over the majority of these parcels. And then in green is also the OR Open Recreation Zoning District. That is the existing zoning. So as part of this application tonight, we're proposing both a zoning map amendment and a text amendment. So the first piece of this is really just cleaning up what we consider to be a not a very well organized or configured configuration of zoning districts. So Mr. Ennis, if you switch to the next slide, I'll show you what is being proposed. Proposed is, as mentioned, a real just a overhaul of that area to the M1 Light Industrial District. That is really what that district intends to be. Cleans up some of the misused commercial along the frontage. There is a piece of green along the, I'll call it the right side of the plan. It's the east side of the plan. That is an open recreation piece that is going to extend from Lincoln Highway down to the creek. That's going to give some access to the creek for recreational purposes. And also on this plan is a conservation easement, about 18 acres, that goes along the entirety of the Neshaminy Creek within the M1 district, along all those parcels. It's approximately 200 feet in width. And again, that is to preserve the existing vegetation, that buffer off of the stream in perpetuity. And the one point that I want to make is, even though we are making the majority of the parcels M1, the combination of that piece of OR that is green on the pit land plus the conservation easement, that's 17 acres, does equate to actually more land than was previously zoned as open recreation in the existing zoning. So that is the first piece of the puzzle here tonight. It's just a rezoning to clean up these parcels. The map in front of you is what's being proposed. The second piece of it is a text amendment to allow, to promote the logistics fulfillment center use. Under the previous draft amendment that was submitted to you, we contemplated both a potential data center use and a cold storage use. The cold storage use had a condition that allowed to go to, I think it was 150 feet of building height, which is typical for cold storage use. The draft in front of you guys tonight but withdraws both of them. There is no more proposed data center use, and there is no more cold storage use proposed. It is just the logistics fulfillment center use without those two separate uses within that ordinance. That's really the background since we last spoke or last presented this to you. The map is still the same. There's been some advancements in the text amendment through conversations with, from feedback from you guys and conversations with staff. And I guess at this point, we'll take any questions you may have. We can walk through letters or, Mr. Chairman, however you see fit here, we'll proceed.
Dominic, any Anything on your end at this point?
Just to note in our review letter, we still have the data center listed as a proposed use, but as Mr. Giannotti just stated, I understand that's been removed. So just to clarify that on our memo. The only other thing I'll just highlight is still included in the text amendment are some of the natural resource ordinances that are being proposed to be addressed. Maybe if you can just speak to
Sure,
them.
and I think that was one part I left out, and thank you. So the main part about this site that's in question tonight, this is a Superfund site. So this was a basically documented, undocumented landfill for many years. All has been not capped appropriately. As part of this project, we are going to be cleaning up that landfill. In order to clean up a landfill, you do need to strip the vegetation. One of the proposed benefits of doing an industrial or large use that is being proposed, the best cap you can put over top of a contaminated site such as this is impervious. So the majority of this site and what's being proposed will be a total cleanup of this site, which has not been cleaned up under proper DEP standards. It still exists in its current form. It is not properly capped. For all intents and purposes, this is still a fully contaminated Superfund site that requires cleanup. So the contemplated changes to I'll call the loosening of the restrictions of the natural resource calculations in that ordinance is specifically because this site is not, I'll call it natural resources. These are just secondary growth that has occurred since this stopped being a landfill, and none of the vegetation on that site should be classified under any type of natural resources. That includes woodland, steep slopes, or anything that has grown since it stopped being a landfill.
Yeah, that's all I really have. I mean, when this may eventually come to a land development, that's when we will, address a lot of the land development concerns. But at this point, we have no other further comments.
Matt? Not at this point. Not at this point. Okay. All right, I'll start with Pete over here this time for questions with the board.
Yeah, Mr. Giannotti, thank you for your explanation. That cleared up some things for me in my mind.
Thank
So I
you.
appreciate that. But one question on that. So you're proposing two things. One is a text amendment and one is a map amendment.
Yes,
The
sir.
map amendment, you've explained very well. I get that. I understand that. The text amendment is an overlay district. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Last time when you guys were here last time, you proposed, you had a plan to go along with your proposal. Showed 2 warehouses or more, driveways and so forth. Is that part of this current proposal as well?
Well, that is something that this proposal would allow, and we showed that as an option of what could be constructed, subject to change within the confines of the ordinance. But tonight is just strictly the map amendment and then the text amendment.
So
which
no
would-
plan associated with it?
No plan associated with
Okay.
this use, or with this application.
My concerns with this submission, really, I organized them in four areas, really. One had all to do with the data center, and it seems that you've now taken that off the table.
Yes, we have.
So I was prepared to bring up all the obvious deleterious components of a data center and so forth, but that's no longer part of this. So I won't bring it up. Secondly are obviously the environmental concerns. You're seeking to change and/or diminish the natural resource protections for the site. That's part of this. And I understand what you're saying, that these really shouldn't be classified as natural resource protection areas. That might not be your authority to make or to do. That's for the Board of Supervisors, really. But that was a concern. And also the idea that it is a contaminated site, as you mentioned. And will the construction, the question that comes up there is, will you remove all the contaminated material or you'll cap it, essentially?
So the way that these sites work, when there's contaminated fill on a site, you do not remove it from the property.
Right,
That is
would
the,
be, yeah.
no, and a lot of the sites, then we can get into a little further through the land development process, you're not even really supposed to touch it. It's supposed to be just a cap over top of that. So that is what is being proposed here. We're not going to be removing any of this contaminated waste. It's going to be capped with an impervious cap in accordance with what's known as Act 2 standards. So it's going to be a closed landfill officially under and we can get into it more. We've done geotechnical investigations of what's under there. It needs to be capped properly because under current standards, it's not appropriate.
But it would be fully 100% capped and under the review of the EPA and so forth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The concern there obviously is that the construction itself might disturb the contamination, especially that you're right next to the creek and the obvious concerns associated with that. That would have to be a condition to the approval.
And we'd accept that.
Okay. My other concern, quite tersely, had to do with traffic. When you did have a plan that showed driveways in and out, you had two driveways. They looked like in, right out, pork chop type driveways. Obviously, you're trying to capitalize on with your frontage on Business Route 1, where it splits right from the highway, from the limited access portion of Route 1. And it just occurs to me that a lot of truck traffic would be generated by this. And most of that truck traffic, as it leaves your site, would, in my mind, want to make it to the Turnpike or further south on Route 1 and that sort of thing. Can you explain how that traffic, in the absence of a signalized intersection, would wind up from your leaving your site to the Turnpike or southbound Route 1 and so forth?
No, it's a great question. And obviously, look, that's a land development item, which just to address it, that will be a condition of any type of land development approval.
Right.
It's a state road, so
Yeah.
we'll have to abide by all PennDOT standards for
Yeah.
design. We'll have to abide by any of your township engineer recommendations. So largely a use-dependent issue, depending on what gets put there in accordance with this text amendment. But here tonight to say, obviously, we will comply with any requirements. And yes, we are aware of all the improvements that have been done to that roadway network. We're aware of being that close to the off-ramp from Route 1 onto Business Route 1. All that will come into play when we do land development with a scoping meeting, and we'll be, we're prepared to address any of those concerns.
Right, and that's the right answer. But it's unlikely in my mind that PennDOT would permit such a signalized intersection so close to their off-ramp.
And that may be true.
That seems to be a challenge to you.
And again, that would be a hurdle we need to get across if we want to signal and if that's where we're going with this.
If it didn't materialize, how would you see that happening?
Again, I can't deal with that right now. But
This is not a land development submission.
No, sir.
Okay. And then my fourth thing had to do with height, but I think you've addressed that, really.
We withdrew the cold storage use.
Yeah. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay. I'm up. We're in like a catch-22. If we change this to manufacturing, you're sure not going to let it sit that way. You're going to try and develop something on it, and it's going to bring us right back full circle to basically all the questions Pete just asked. And there are questions that I wish you would, which you don't have to, but I wish you'd be able to answer prior to us making a decision on this, because it's like once we open the floodgates, we're the ones who have to keep our heads above water on this. So that I'm a little bit on the fence about that. And then a couple other questions I have is about, I don't know much about how to cap a landfill, and this parlays on what Pete had said earlier too. So let's just hypothetically say you're going for it, you get it approved, and you're starting to put buildings up. How do they get the footings in without disturbing the landfill?
There's methods of footings that can be installed, and that's part of a geotechnical investigation. Sometimes they may have to be with deep piles through the landfill, but it's all.
Then you are disturbing the landfill like he asked about.
Well, you're allowed to. So this is very, look, this is highly technical how you do it. You can be assured that we need to follow all EPA standards when you deal with anything like this. So your concerns are warranted. We hear them. But we will have to go through a whole slew of permitting to even construct anything on this site and comply with EPA standards and your township standards, whatever gets applied, in order to do any form of construction here. So I understand your concerns. It really depends on what gets constructed, the footings that get installed. But this site can be developed. We have developed landfill sites and contaminated sites very successfully. I will argue to say that the condition that it's in is probably at a worse state given that it's not a capped landfill that close to any stream.
That was one of the questions. It's really close to the Chamonix Creek, and how's that going to affect the creek and the waterway? And then the other question I had was the definitions that you had listed here with the industrial outdoor storage, a facility for storage of vehicles, construction equipment, building materials. Got a better example of that? I mean, I'm thinking a parking lot for tractor trailers like they have at the Oxford Valley Mall right now, and that's something I wouldn't want to see.
Again, industrial outside storage is usually used as an accessory to maybe a warehouse. A lot of the warehouses you'll see will have they'll have docks and they'll have the loading stalls at the docks, but then they'll also have trailer storage off to the side. So that is really, it can be used as an accessory to an industrial use. And industrial outdoor storage, I mean, it's defined. It is pretty loosely defined there, but it does typically live as an accessory to an industrial use.
Who made that definition up? Is that in our ordinances? You're making that up?
This was
What you're, yeah, and that's what, right there, I thought it was a township, but that's the whole, I got a gigantic question mark on that too, just the definition of that and what it means, and I'm envisioning things happening there under this industrial outdoor storage definition that is not going to work well. I don't know if anybody else on the board is seeing that, but I really have an issue with that whole term and the whole definition of it. The logistics landfill sounds like not a bad thing, or the trucking cross dock facility, but I really do not like that industrial outdoor storage one. I don't know if you want to take it out, if you want to redefine it, but your definition is like just too general and does not detail what's going on there. That one.
Can I ask, are any of these proposed uses which you need relief for under this variance? Or can they all be already
Two comments.
implemented?
I'll address that question first. We've proposed, and it's been suggested that these uses be further conditioned as conditional uses, which would be entirely acceptable to us to give both this commission and ultimately any other reviewing body and board the opportunity to see it before it being a permitted use by right. And hopefully, at that time, you would get the further clarification, further detail as to precisely what it is that's going there, what impacts it's going to have, and the opportunity to review it at that conditional use stage. So hopefully that answers the second part of that question.
Not quite.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it answered my.
Right.
Well,
My question really is, not to step on you, Rich.
Yeah, that's okay.
My question really is, of the uses that you're requesting, which can be permitted currently on those properties?
None.
and Which
This is
cannot?
none. It's a zoning text amendment, so this is new text that would be added to or revise existing text. So each of these uses is a new use.
Warehousing?
Well, that's not in that's existing use, so
Okay.
it wouldn't override, it doesn't
Right.
take away the existing uses.
Okay.
It adds these three new uses
Okay.
to the scope of permissible uses in the overlay district, which is now applicable to the M1.
So the new ones you're adding again are this outdoor storage?
Correct. Logistics fulfillment and trucking cross-dock facility.
Okay.
We've removed the cold storage and the data center. Those are no longer being proposed. So none of them are permitted now. None of them exist now. None of them are defined. None of those three are in the ordinance now. They would be proposed as a part of this amendment permitted in the overlay. And I'll reiterate that it's acceptable if the commission was so inclined that those be permitted only by conditional use. Again, to give you.
I would be inclined, not to step on you, Pete, but I would be inclined to take that whole thing out of there. The whole industrial outdoor storage. The more I read it, the more I paint pictures of things that are not going to work well there. I mean, so that's what I'd be inclined to do, is take that whole definition of industrial outdoor storage totally out.
add one comment and then turn it back over to Mr. Gennady. You heard him say that that's typically and anticipated as an accessory. Think of it just like most ordinances don't permit outdoor storage at the Home Depot or the Lowe's. They view that as a separate additional use that you have to specifically separately provide for. It's the same thing, albeit on a industrial level. So,
But you're asking us to approve this the way it's written right here tonight, right? This is what you're asking for, an approval for all this ordinance that you have written here the way it is tonight?
the recommendation, or as.
Oh, but
as
you're
amend-
asking us to approve it, correct?
Or as you see fit to amend with whatever recommendations.
I just amended, take the whole thing out.
Well, the one thing I'll add, and I think, the Reedman site and the industrial uses that you have on that site that just went up too, the dock storage on the trailer storage on the outside of the loading docks around the facility is technically industrial outdoor storage.
You have that in trucking cross-traffic dock facility, a type of distribution center with minimal storage space to accommodate goods that arrive and are quickly sorted and loaded to outbound vehicles.
Technically, that does not, and under some ordinances, that does not permit the storage of tractor trailers that are not attached to the building.
That's my whole point. I don't want tractor trailers stored there. We have plenty of them over at the Oxford Valley Mall.
What you don't understand is how warehousing works. So when you have a
I
warehouse,
don't know. I think I've been around a lot of warehouses in my day.
well, not to get argumentative here, but if that were the case, you'd understand that the modern warehouse has an industrial outside storage use as an accessory to their use under all standards. When you have a cross-dock facility, the way that they operate under quick succession is that they pull a trailer up to the building, it latches on the building, and then someone will go and pick up another trailer that's stored on along the perimeter. Those trailers that are stored around the perimeter of the site are technically industrial outdoor storage. So it is an accessory to a warehousing use and highly necessary under the modern warehouse. So
The definition reads a lot
you
more
can
than
amend
that.
it. You can amend it, but
I don't want to amend it as much as I want to say eliminate it. That's more like what I'm thinking, because you're adding on storage of vehicles, construction equipment, building materials, goods on pallets or containers. That tells me a lot of C boxes will be there. A lot of pallets will be around. Vehicles may include operative trucks, truck trailers, buses, recreational vehicles, fleet vehicles, and other motor vehicles. Your definition is a broad, wide range of anything could happen on this property, but you're terming it under industrial outdoor storage.
We can make it, we can further clarify it as only permitted as an accessory use if that.
That's what I was just about to suggest, was a lot of these uses are accessory to a warehouse or some sort of warehouse use. I was going to suggest, up to your review, clarify the industrial outdoor storage is only permitted as an accessory use to one of the other permitted uses.
So they'd have to redefine this whole definition here then.
No, because that would, the definition is what they're saying industrial outdoor storage is, but that would not be allowed to be a main use on the property. It would have to be accessory only to what is the main use on the property. So if they have a fulfillment center, whatever, they're going to have trucks and other things that are going to need to be stored outside. That would have to be accessory. So if all of a sudden we go and we see that the whole property is just all trucks, that's not an accessory use. That's obviously their main use. That wouldn't be permitted. It would have to be
But this is
strictly
after the fact. This is after it's already done, and then it's something that we have to police, right? When we're
Yeah, but
here
we have to
right
police.
at
We
the-
have to police everything, Rich. And,
I
and one
know.
thing, and one thing that I would point out that he agreed to was that he would make all of these uses, all of the main uses on this property would have to be a conditional use. So when you're looking at approving the conditional use, you're going to ask them, what is your industrial outdoor storage going to look like? And you can certainly make some conditions at that time of what the outdoor storage would be. Because you have the right under conditional use to insert conditions.
And we have the right to take it out, right? We have the right to say no?
You absolutely do.
I think the definition, if you look at section C, is just definitions, right? So.
That's what I'm looking at.
Correct, yes. And then if you go down to section D, you're going to actual use regulations. I think what would probably, at least from what I'm hearing, address your concern and maybe address Mr. Esposito's suggestion is instead of listing that as a permitted use as subsection B, it just be changed to as an accessory use as opposed to a principal use, such that you don't have that use dominating the property, because it is a unquestionable reality that those are accessory components to pretty much any industrial use today. You have trucks moving freight, pallets, things around. So, and we are simply just trying to not be in a position where it's down the road and it's, well, that's not a permitted accessory use. That's not included in the underlying use. And again, I'll go back to, you see this today, or well, we've addressed it in most ordinances by today, that outdoor storage in big box stores was viewed as a separate use, distinct from the box store, such that it had to be defined as an accessory use. That's why you have, for Walmart's, Lowe's, Home Depot's, you have the box store use.
Right, but you're
and a
not
separate
defining
accessory
it
use.
as an accessory use
And
here.
we are certainly proposing to do, and as a conditional use on top of that.
While I ponder that, I'll turn it over to Amber.
The conditional use was definitely a concern of mine, and I feel better with that. My other question was the open recreational space. Is that contaminated? And does that require any remediation?
So the limits of which are, we do have a plan that shows limits. I'm not sure how far it extends. The whole site will be cleaned up as part of this application. So that is really what's being proposed here. So I don't have that, where that extents, where the extents are. We can get into more detail there, but what I'll commit to tonight as part of this application, we will be cleaning up the entirety of the
And
site.
is that in writing somewhere that you guys are responsible for any remediation of that open area?
I'm sure it could be a condition of.
You can, not unlike the discussion that's happening with the accessory use, you can make that a condition if you're inclined to go into a direction of conditional approval.
Yeah, I would not want to just leave that open space where people can use for recreation with it being contaminated.
Yeah, it's it's really intended as a access way to the river more so than I'll say.
Yeah, it said educational, it said forestry, it sounded like,
And just speaking with the applicant, the limits of the landfill are a little bit further to the west of the site. So that's the majority of the landfill. If there is anything over there, obviously it will be cleaned up, but the majority of the landfill does exist in the heart of the site to the west, closest to the Route 1 area.
but you guys, when you do testing and whatnot, you will be
Correct.
testing that open area, and if anything comes up, you're
Yes.
responsible.
The whole property will go through the Act
the
2
remediation.
The Act 2 review and approval, what EPA determines is necessary to quote unquote remediate that portion. I mean, they
Is
might
it
say that it needs to be
possible-
capped too.
Right, I was
don't
going to
know.
say, can that be remediated and stay open space, or will that have to be capped as well?
That's a EPA. Yeah, the entirety of that's outside of our
So
ability to
that
say it's
space you're
EPA.
proposing to leave open, but it's kind of a choose your own adventure depending what the testing shows.
Based on what we know, that site's clean, that side of the site's clean, but committing tonight that it's obviously the whole site's going to be remediated
Okay.
as necessary.
Just back to the accessory use conversation. Do you have an idea of like the amount of that accessory use would inhabit a property? Is there some kind of parameter or percentage that you could put on that to make sure that it's absolutely going to be an accessory use and not a principal?
I don't know the use, but we could probably come up with a number that would maybe be appropriate, but no, we don't. And there is another further comment under, I'll call it Section E, requirements at number 8, outdoor storage of materials, goods, refuge may be permitted as an accessory use to the permitted use, provided such areas are buffered within a pig screen. So we did account for outdoor storage being an accessory to the use. It would just be, as Joe mentioned, Mr. Blackburn mentioned, it would just have to be repositioned in the permitted use to an accessory use, to further clarify. But I do think it is a very, very important part of any industrial use to allow that.
So yeah, I have another point of clarification. You intend for this overlay district to be applied to this set of properties?
M1 district, correct? Yep.
Right. And so when this first came before us the previous time, this was not an overlay district. It was intended as a text amendment to a certain zoning district.
Correct.
Right, and the recommendation from this board at that point was that that be changed so that it doesn't have such a widespread, that compelled us to look at every property in that district. I think you stood here and made the point that, okay, well, this only applies to 50-acre parcels within that district. That can become a slippery slope, but you now changed it to be an overlay district. But as I read it, it's not tied to this property or this set of properties. What would stop anyone from taking this and applying it to any other type of district within the township? What am I missing there?
And Mr. Esposito can certainly jump in here, but the approval would be specific to these tax map parcels. The overlay is applicable to the identified TMPs. They all share this zoning, yes, because the
Okay.
first component is the rezoning, but then the overlay is applied specifically to these parcels within the
That'll
M1,
be
not
written
the
in
M1
the,
generally.
that'll be written in the ordinance that way.
Yes, yeah, that's
All right, I
it.
don't see it here now. That's why I asked. Unless I'm missing it.
Yeah, that's currently not in the ordinance. I think that's an easy change, but that's not in the latest iteration of the ordinance that we got.
So it'll be written in this ordinance that it's specific to these properties. Okay.
Well, it's not, he said it's not now.
It's not right now, but part of tonight is kind of amending if you're willing to
Right,
do
as
so.
I read it, that's just what occurred to me, and that's,
Yeah, now the way it reads right now, it's an overlay that could apply to pretty much any M1 district property that's over 50 acres that meets some of the other standards in here. So you'd have to find an M1 property that's over 50 acres.
Understood, but the
no,
point is that-
I agree. I'm just trying to say how it's currently written.
okay. Thank
Typically,
you.
we try to build the mousetrap as small as possible around a limited number of parcels as opposed to specifically enumerating limited parcels, but
Why would we avoid specifically enumerating parcels?
that's a question for your solicitor.
Well, sometimes when you do that, then you're getting into spot zoning.
Spot zoning. Okay.
Back to me? So what I see is, I'm going to go back to the industrial storage facility. I mean, I'll agree with you, storage of vehicles or construction equipment, building materials, goods on pallets or containers. If you're building a warehouse, yes. The parts that bother me, recreational vehicles, fleet vehicles, or other motor vehicles. That big, right, like right there, they're the parts that I'm thinking we're having a tractor trailer storage facility. You know what I mean? Because you're talking about storing the vehicles, but then you're saying they all have to be in working condition. So you're asking us to do something we have a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we have a lot of questions. We have questions on the traffic, which I know it comes in later on, but it would have been nice if you have some of them answers for us. Exactly what you're building, I don't think is much an issue as when we're trying to figure out, we give you this, we're going to give you this with blinders on, and then you're going to come back to us with this, and this later on, and it might not be something that makes the board happy, but you can turn around and say, well, you gave us this overlay district. You know what I mean? And that's where it's like we're giving something away without knowing all the details. Does anybody else disagree with that? I mean, we just don't know.
You want to tighten this up, is that?
Well, I want to tighten this ordinance on the industrial outdoor storage, I want to tighten that part up.
For sure.
The other two parts, I don't have an issue with. What Pete brought up about, what's going to make this not be a general consensus that anyone else can't come in through town and say, hey, you gave it to them, now you're going to give it to us. That needs to be
Does
tightened
this
up
need to get
too.
reworked?
Yeah, is there any way you can rework this stuff and then come back to us and we can table this for the time being?
I mean, certainly the revisions to the applicability, easy, no issue there. I had thought and hoped that, the inclusion of the additional layer of conditional use approval and review would maybe address and assuage some of those concerns. I'm not sure if I'm hearing that it's not, but we remain, open to including that. I agree, without looking at all of the, subcategories, I agree, recreational vehicles are probably not something that we need to include in that list.
Buses?
The reality is, I don't know if you have an opinion on the extent of the enumerated vehicles that are included in here and their necessary inclusion in industrial use, but
No, we do. I mean, the last two lines, storage of damaged or scrap vehicles, all parts of vehicles is prohibited. Storage of tanker trucks, vehicles used to transport hazardous, flammable, explosive materials is prohibited. So we did exclude, sounds like you're hung up on the buses and recreational vehicles, if that's something.
I'm kind of hung up on the whole thing, but according to Jim, we got to let some of that go. Then I have to let some of that go. I'm hung up on that entire paragraph.
I think what you're hung up on is something that
The entire paragraph. I
is-
just said that, the entire paragraph.
But you mentioned that it's part of the logistics fulfillment center and the trucking cross-dock facility. And you already mentioned that you think that this is already a contingent part or an accessory part of it just by that definition.
Well, it's an ordinance. By that definition, if we leave this the way it is, you have everything. If we agree with this, the way it sits, the way it's read, and we approve it this evening, then everything sits the way it is, right? Because we would need something else to reword the ordinance to change it.
Well, not necessarily. You would say as conditions, if you were inclined to go in the direction of giving a recommendation of approval tonight, you would make sure that there's emphasis on the specific TMP identification that we already discussed. You would make sure that it isn't conditional use. You would also make sure that the uses that you have issue with are indeed accessory use types, and that's fully defined as a change. If they agree to those conditions, they actually don't have to come back here tonight. I mean, back in front of you guys at a later time, I should say. We would make sure that they did actually make those changes prior to it actually going in front of the Board of Supervisors for any kind of approval that they're going to be seeking from them. Just, again, food for thought, doesn't mean I'm advocate or anything like that, but that's the whole purpose of the conditional use, right? And also the land development thing. If it is indeed a conditional use, accessory use, anytime something even similar is proposed, they're going to have to go through a conditional use process, but then it allows us to put conditions, allows us to really kind of understand the magnitude of that accessory use as far as and how much it would inhabit the property, its location. And again, we can start talking about conditions that would screen it and also maybe even limit its scale and scope to make sure that it maintains an accessory use and it's not as impactful as what a very valid concern that you have right now.
And I would add, I'm not aware myself of any accessory use that is permitted as a conditional use, so that it would be above and beyond that which I think exists in any ordinance that I'm familiar with, to have this permitted accessory, or this accessory use permitted as a conditional use. But just to echo what Mr. Ennis said, it would be layer upon layer of additional opportunity for review and commentary to make sure that it does, meet with, or doesn't, rise to the level of concern that we're hearing you have tonight, so.
Do you have any idea of, a logistics fulfillment center? I know, and again, I'm working on when you were here with us before. I think you had proposed a cold storage facility that went close to 100 feet in the air, or was it 80 feet?
That use has been eliminated, yes.
And so you come back to us later on, you got a logistics fulfillment center. What's the height of that building going to be?
Whatever's currently permitted, and I don't think we changed the height as a part of this ordinance from that which is currently permitted in the M1, so it would be whatever's permitted in the M1 now. I'm not.
I think there's actually a height limitation in this ordinance of 60 feet.
60 feet. 60, is that different than the M1 now? I think it is.
It is different than the current.
Oh,
M1.
yeah, I see it now, yep.
If you look at subsection E, it has all the bulk zoning criteria, so those would be applicable to any use, logistics center, warehouse, what have you, in that district, in the overlay, I should say.
And just to reiterate, in order for us to get to the next step of getting you what I think you want to see is what's going to be planned here, what could be constructed here, what's it going to look like. The zoning needs to be in place so that we can talk to end users and develop a plan for them to come in here and develop the site. Until the zoning's in place, our applicant can't have those conversations because no one's going to come to a site that's not properly zoned. So this is the first step, and I know we've been working through it for some time, and I know we've made a few, I think pretty big revisions to try to, as Mr. Blackburn said, tighten that box up a little bit, that we can kind of pinpoint the user that we're looking for, but until that zoning's in place, we can't get to that next step and come before you again with a new sketch plan saying, this is what's proposed in accordance with the zoning, give us your conditions. So there is a next level to this where you will be able to apply the conditions, but the base zoning needs to be in place and the map needs to be amended for that to happen. So, and that's just typical for any type of development is we need to have it in place before we can have those conversations. This is going to be a very, very expensive property to develop. There's going to be a very particular end user that could come here and do the work. So that's going to be self-limiting. You're not going to get someone to come here and make it a trucking
Wouldn't your
yard.
first step be to cap off the landfill first before you even,
There needs to be someone to pay for all that.
That's a
Yes.
multi.
and that same person that's going to pay for that is going to build a building there?
Yes. The foundations on this property will be millions and millions of dollars. So the zoning needs to be in place for us to have any discussions. And we can't get the zoning in place, so we can't have the discussions. So, I mean, as part of this application, it's going to be full stormwater management where there's no stormwater now. There's a lot of benefits to developing this property. As it exists today is a hazard for the township. I mean, there's no other way to say that. So we're just trying to
It's
get the
been
zoning.
sitting there not bothering anybody for years. I don't know how it's a hazard to the
There's
township.
stormwater seeps going through contaminated waste going right into the river. So, I mean, we can get into more detail about that, but I think any
You
development,
just told Amber that close to the creek, there was no waste.
the site is a contaminated landfill as stormwater seeps through the
She brought
property.
up the point about leaking into the creek, and you said most of it's on the west side.
That's not what I said. I said that the open space area is likely not a contaminated fill, but the site exists as a contaminated landfill today. So stormwater runoff that goes through the site is going to leach into the Neshaminy Creek.
Do you have end users? Is this something that you are?
No.
No, okay. So this is all kind of
There's
speculative at this point?
there's conversations, but no one's having the full conversation until we get the zoning in place.
Yeah, and then you're asking us to put our faith in you.
No, I'm just asking to put the zoning in place so we can get to the next step so that we can bring a plan in front of you to have further discussions where you can apply conditions.
This is,
Again, all right, hold on, I'll stop this. Here's how I feel. After this, I'll say this, then I'm going to ask if there's any public comment.
okay.
The way I feel is this. I am not happy with the whole definition of industrial outdoor storage facility. It's a broad definition. It leaves the thing wide open for us to not be able to come back and set any type of regulations when you do find a developer. And if you're going to hang your hat on, you can't find nobody because it doesn't meet that definition, that's not our issue. So I'm going to say this. Change that definition and then come back to us and of that, or get rid of it totally, and then I don't personally have a problem with it. I can't speak for the rest of the board, and some of the members aren't here this evening either, but at this point, I'm going to say that's how I feel, and then I'm going to ask for public comment. Is there anybody here in the public that would like to speak on behalf of this applicant? Seeing none, I would make a motion, once I find my paperwork.
Well, we don't need to talk about like what we have to limit.
Go ahead.
Our list. So if, I guess, I would need, I think like he's saying, specific, if this was something that we were going to entertain, we need you to give us very specific language of how you are going to amend this text, what's moving, where it's going, what's changing.
And excuse me, just so that we have a clear understanding, that includes the TMP number inclusions, specification that the one use is by accessory only, that all the uses are by conditional use.
Full remediation of the entire district.
Well, that
And accessory use
okay.
of the industrial storage, move that somehow so that it is very clear that it's accessory use only. How would you suggest that? How would that read? What's moving, what's changing?
Well, the definition, we can talk about whether the definition changes at all, but if you go down to subsection D, use regulations, it lists that use as a permitted use, and we would just characterize it as an accessory use instead of a use permitted by right, unless Mr. Esposito or Mr. Ennis has a different opinion. It's pretty straightforward on that one, I would think.
So the easiest way, and listen, we can write this, the easiest way to probably amend some of this stuff, if you looked at paragraph B for applicability, that's where you would look at adding the tax map parcel numbers. The use regulations, you would just add some additional language there saying the use regulations are, all of these are under a conditional use, permitted as a conditional use. You would remove the industrial outdoor storage as B there, insert a new section for accessory uses, saying that.
Accessory uses.
Yeah, specifically for that as an accessory use. There's a paragraph, I believe it is, without people wasting time, it does talk about the remediation aspect. We can add in there that it has to remediate anytime there is any remediation, it would have to remediate the entire site.
And can you give us any reason why recreational vehicles, cars, fleets would need to stay in this language at all? Can you give us any reason recreational?
No,
Start there, needs
no.
to stay.
My
And
guess
that-
is that it was, there's a database out there, like, this came from another ordinance. You know, lawyers are notorious plagiarists. You know, you'll hear it here first. This, I guarantee you this definition exists somewhere else. It was taken, it was put here. Recreational vehicles, strike it right now, or we can get rid of it.
Oh, the buses. Fleet vehicles. How about we do this? At this point, I would like to table this until this entire ordinance gets cleaned up based on what we discussed tonight. Bring us the ordinance that we like, and I don't personally see any reasons to question anything else.
I think that's fair, and I'm
We're
just
still
trying to make
going to
sure that
go
I
on,
understand what those.
we're still going to be going on a lot of what-ifs, like with traffic and different items like that, but changing it, Pete's got a good point about, you know, what happens to the future parcels. Amber has a good point on remediating the site. Me, I'm just stuck on something silly, but that's the way I am. So can you come back with a rewritten ordinance based on the items we discussed this evening? Come back to us, and
Absolutely.
I think we'll be sailing right through the meeting.
Yes, absolutely. I think we were just trying to make sure that
I
I
was gonna say, I
understood what
think.
those were. I think
Yep.
you guys probably
I think
have
they have notes, we have notes, we'll compare them, and actually, we'll probably talk to you guys in general as we're doing it, just to figure it all out.
Then at this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to table this until a later date. Is there a motion to table till a later date?
I'll make a motion to table.
Is there a second? I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Thank you very much for your feedback, guys.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. Sorry, I'm still looking for my agenda somewhere. Ah, here it is. Okay. Item number 5, S/LD 25-6, application for preliminary and final land development to propose a demolition of the existing vacant Denny's building to permit the construction of a 2,700 square foot Taco Bell fast food restaurant with a dual drive-through. 640 East Lincoln Highway, tax map parcel 22-041-026. In the commercial district, 15 addresses were notified. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Mike Malloy from Obermeyer, Redmond, Maxwell Hippel on behalf of Langhorne Investors LLC. And a little background on Langhorne Investors. Sorry, first of all, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Ennis, Mr. Esposito. Hello, engineers. So anyway, Mike Malloy on behalf of Langhorne Investors is a related company to the Summerwood Corporation. Summerwood is located right up the turnpike in West Conshohocken. They own 200 plus Taco Bells, and they own the ground underneath them. So they handle all of their site work, they handle all of their landscaping, things like that themselves to make sure that their Taco Bells look like the best Taco Bells you've ever seen. I have tonight with me Brian Cleary from the Pettit Group. He was our civil engineer on the project. Joe Eberlees from TRG, he's our traffic engineer, and I'll explain why he's here. And Joe DePascal is from Summerwood. He's the director of development for all the Summerwood locations. So this project is the first time it's been in front of the Planning Commission, and we are still hoping for preliminary / final recommendation for approval. This project originated sometime last summer. We applied for a special exception, which is required for a fast food restaurant in the C Commercial District, where this is located, and a couple of variances having to do with parking, things like that. At that point, I'm sorry, if we take one more step back, though, and this is important, the history of the project goes further back because this project is located at the intersection where Wawa came in, PennDOT did a major revamping of the intersection, the lights, things like that. And so that becomes important as I'll discuss further. So Brian's here to discuss the engineering letter, can walk through the waivers. The waivers generally have to do with stormwater management and existing site conditions because this site has been an empty Denny's for as long as I remember it. Not as long as I remember it. I mean, I grew up here, so it's like not that, but at least the past years, it's been an empty Denny's. So he can walk through that. But the biggest issue that we faced through this process in June, when we got our special exception and our variances and we did our hearings, we were introduced to representatives from the Middletown Township Emergency Squad. And the ambulance squad is right next to the Denny's. They, at the squad, made it very clear that they were unhappy with the fact that a Taco Bell was going next door for a number of reasons, mainly because, not because they didn't like tacos, but because they didn't like sharing a driveway with the fast food use. So this has been on your agenda for a number of months, since, I don't know, October of last year, maybe. And each time we've discussed with the township the concerns of the emergency management squad. And we've met both together with the squad, the township's engineers, our engineers. We've met independently with township staff to try to resolve things. I've, of course, called Mr. Esposito, talked to Mr. Ennis. And the EMS squad hired Dynamic Engineering, who produced a plan. And I'm going to have Brian, because I'm the lawyer, so I sit down at some point and ask the technical guy to get up. I'll get Brian to walk through first our site plan, the waivers, that kind of stuff, and we'll run through that and get to the meat of it, okay? Which is that the EMS folks and their engineers have made certain recommendations about striping, about signage. One of the things that was implemented when PennDOT approved the intersection with the staff of the EMS squad at the time, right? There's a preemption device that when initiated, turns the light at that intersection green. And so, presumably, any Taco Bell person who is going through the drive-through and knows enough not to eat their taco in the driveway will see the green light and have plenty of time to clear the intersection before the ambulance comes out, because that preemption device is there. And we've offered to work with them, pay for improvements to that, things like that. One of the things that was on the plan, though, was expanding the driveway. And again, Joe Eberly's here. He's the traffic guy, and he'll understand if you do that, it's going to create a problem because somebody might make a right-hand turn into the ambulance. Somebody might just start using it to get out there. There's a billion different ways we can't do that. But we're here to say that's the only thing on their recommended plan that we can't do. The rest of this stuff, the striping, if we have to put new emitters off, if we have to adjust their timing on the preemption device, if we have to put a bar that goes down, to block new drive-through customers from coming out when the ambulance is coming through, we're in. But we can't touch the driveway. And that's what the guys will tell you. So unless you have any questions for me, which, I'm just summarizing everything, I'm going to ask Brian Cleary to get up and walk through the plan. And then Joe Eberly is available from a traffic perspective to tell you why and walk you through everything else except for the driveway expansion. Okay? Thanks.
Hello, Brian Cleary from the Pettit Group. If we could go to the next sheet. Okay. So this is a presentation exhibit. It shows the proposed improvements on the existing aerial with some landscaping shown that we're proposing. So the project, it's located across the street from the Wawa. There's currently 2 accesses to the property. There's an existing access on the east side of the property and the access that's shared with the EMS. We expect the majority of people to utilize the shared access with the EMS, but the secondary access will be a right-in, right-out for patrons who are traveling westbound on Lincoln Highway and for those who are exiting westbound. So the plan is there's a row of parking along Lincoln Highway. We're keeping that generally as is. We're just restriping it. We're widening the landscaped island around our proposed pylon sign. And the layout of the property is, let's say you come in from the shared driveway. You make an immediate right into the Taco Bell, and you can either make a left into a drive-through only dedicated lane, or you make a left into the row of parking that's on the east side of the property. So if you use the drive-through lane, you circulate around the building, you exit on the west side of the property, and then you make a right out to that shared driveway. If you're just making a right out of the property, you could utilize the eastern access. We're proposing a don't block the box at the intersection between our front drive aisle and the shared driveway. So that's really it for the layout. The parking area to the rear of the property, we're not really changing that. It's subject to a cross-access and parking easement there's a Marble Place next door. So they have an easement over the rear of that. So that's why that parking area is generally staying untouched. Drainage, we're proposing an underground stormwater system to meet the ordinance requirements generally. Updated landscaping on the property, additional lighting to accommodate the Taco Bell development. We received letters from the engineer, your traffic engineer, the fire marshal, and the environmental commission. We have no issues with most of those letters. The only, I wouldn't say an issue, but the environmental commission requested that we install a bioretention basin instead of the underground basin. We don't have room on site to be able to accommodate that. While it looks like there's a decent amount of green area, there is, but there's significant slopes on the property, and that's actually something I'll be discussing with a waiver request. So there's not a lot of space to be able to put in a flat bioretention facility. That's why we're going underground. As noted, we did receive variances to permit the fast food restaurant as a special exception to permit 22 dedicated parking spaces for the Taco Bell, where 54 are required. This variance doesn't include the parking to the rear. That's subject to the shared parking. And there's a few variants to permit the hours of operation to exceed midnight. And there were existing conditions that did not need variances because we weren't making them worse, which had to do with impervious cover, sign setback from the right-of-way, and to provide a landscaped island along the right-of-way. So we are requesting several waivers. One of them is to permit preliminary and final plan approval concurrently. We've addressed 99% of your professionals' review comments, so we think that this is a relatively straightforward request. From providing plans and profiles of stormwater and soil erosion measures, I don't believe your engineer has an issue with that request. To permit the water quality storm event to discharge in less than 24 hours. We have a small drainage area going to the basin. It's just not feasible for us to store it for 24 hours. To permit 12-inch storm pipes where 15 inches required. Once again, small drainage areas to these inlets that have the 12-inch pipes. It's also a private pipe, so the developer will maintain it. From providing street trees, this is a technical waiver to not require them along the roadway frontage, since there's not a whole lot of grass area between the existing parking and the sidewalk, and there's overhead lines within that area. We don't think it's feasible to install street trees. However, we are proposing additional trees on the inside of the property to compensate for those street trees. To permit curb radii less than 5 feet. There are islands that are less than 10 feet in width. And the only other locations where we have less than a 5-foot radius is directly adjacent to parking spaces. So we see no issue with the reduced radii. To permit 2 driveways along the property frontage, that's existing. To permit a driveway within 12 feet of a property line, existing for both driveways on the property. From providing a 30-foot parking setback to the ultimate right-of-way, existing condition. To permit grades in excess of 3%, once again, an existing condition. And from providing an off-street loading space. Taco Bell, the way they operate, especially this developer, is their loading operations take place overnight. The delivery driver has a key to the building, and they kind of park wherever works best for them to access the building. So no parking spaces, no driveways, nothing will be impacted by the loading operations. And that, I believe, is the remainder. Yes, that's the remainder of the required waivers. And generally, that's the layout of the site.
Sorry, Dominic, a lot of requested waivers there.
I will note that a lot of the, looks like 5 of the 11 requested waivers are all existing conditions, as Mr. Cleary stated. So I just want to note that, like he stated, the 2 existing driveways is an existing condition, the access driveway within 12 feet. So all the ones in our review letter that are noted as existing conditions, I just wanted to highlight that. Other than that, our review letter is conditionally approved with 3 conditions, one of which has been addressed. Obtaining a variance for the 12-foot wide planting strip, we determined that that is not needed. An O&M agreement, which I'm sure the applicant is willing to provide. And then the sewage facilities planning module, I know, is in the works as we speak. It is a site, they are reducing the impervious area. They are providing stormwater that meets the ordinances of the township. So we have no other comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Matt? Anything? Would, I think I might go out of our synchronous order here. could you shed some light on what the attorney earlier was saying about the EMS engineers have a plan and they have a plan and there's only a couple things? I was asking Matt first, our township engineer, if he could shed some light on that for us. Do we have a drawing for that you can put up? There it is.
I think having the applicant walk through those concerns and how they plan to address or what they plan to address first would probably be prudent.
Okay, well, I thought we had him up there addressing, he mentioned earlier how he was okay with everything on their engineer's drawing except for the one item, right, Jim?
Well, that was their attorney. I think their traffic
Oh.
engineer can probably give a more technical review of it.
All right, then we'll have their traffic engineer.
I'll try. How about that? Joe Eberly with TRG. Good evening. The plan is up there. A lot of notes. There's striping to be done in front of the area of the garages where the ambulances would come out and also when they return back in. Just to, I believe there is some no parking there now, or at least there was at one time. I'm not sure if it was put back after it was repaved or not. But a large box or no parking could be added as text for that area, so no one is coming off of the driveway area any more than they need to be in the driveway area in the lane, as well as some pavement marking in the driveway showing a box that should not be blocked. That is just to keep those lanes open as much as possible. If there's any signage then that would be added, could be added on site for Taco Bell as well as in the along the side of the driveway, not to block that box. The other thing is the push button for preemption, how that's supposed to work, and I believe it works that way, but there may be some issues with it of timing. On the signal plan, when that button is pushed, there's a clearance interval for whatever direction has green at that time that would go to yellow and then red, and that takes about 6 to 7 seconds. At that time, the southbound driveway approach would turn green. Anyone sitting in the driveway could then go, make their left or right turn, and the ambulance could come out and then go as well, make their left or right turn, whichever direction they're headed. The timing on that is 45 seconds worth of green time. So if you assume approximately 6 seconds for startup loss time, a light changes, typically that's probably pretty conservative. Usually people go right away, but there is a kind of a startup loss time of about 6 seconds. So that leaves 39 seconds of green time. A conservative progression per vehicle of 3 seconds. So you're going to get more than 10 vehicles being able to clear by that 45 seconds. From my understanding, some emails, the EMS service may be looking for additional time than the 45 seconds, and that's something we can change the signal plan and take that to PennDOT, as well as the township. Township has to be involved as maintenance of the signal. That is the biggest piece, that preemption. If it's working right, which we believe it is, I know the EMS would have a better idea of dealing with it every day. But make sure it works right. Make sure the timing is enough for them to get out and clear anybody that's there. As well as currently the plan is set up for that button to trigger the preemption. However, there's also a preemption detector on the other side of the intersection for southbound traffic. I guess that could be a scenario where a policeman is parked behind the Taco Bell, comes out and puts their preemption on so they don't have access to the button, obviously, in the building, but that would still allow the preemption to be triggered from someone on the driveway there, just like it would be on all other approaches and at other intersections. And then the other thing that we've even talked about is additional detectors for that preemption. The ambulances sit kind of east and west, so if they would come out eastbound and either haven't hit the button, or the detector on the south side of the intersection would not register their preemption, we could do something with a detector that's directly across the driveway at the Taco Bell area, so that when the ambulances come out to the east, it triggers right away. So those are some of the things that we looked at, and willing to paint, put the signs up, make sure the preemption's working the way it should be and the way that they want it to, and really go from there. The plan also shows the physical alteration of the driveway, and I believe the timing was when the wall was done. The signal was installed at that point. This driveway was modified. It had a little bit different, there was kind of a curb in the middle of it, and it was a one-way out for the western half. It was a little bit different operation before the signal went in. Now that it is the typical PennDOT low-volume driveway footprint, it's a little wider. Typically, they're 24 feet, so it's a little bit wider than that. But the additional proposed widening that is called for in the plan would just create a lot of conflicts there. I understand it's the same thing as we spend a lot of time signing and pavement marking plans, and you move lines by half a foot and 4 inches here and that kind of thing, and then out on the roads people kind of do what they want. We can get it as good as we can. The same thing I'm sure happens when an ambulance or emergency services comes up behind you and you're supposed to get over and yield way. Doesn't always happen. But with that scenario, if you have someone that tends to freeze at the intersection, they're going to have a green light and they should be cleared out by the time the ambulance would get there. With this widening, you could have someone sitting there waiting to go, even though there's a green light, they may be waiting. And then if the ambulance tries to come beside them, you could have conflicting turns where the car wants to turn right, the ambulance wants to turn left. And I don't think it creates a safe condition there. Just it creates a lot of conflicts that I think is over and above what is needed for this situation. The other thing, once it is there, we can stripe it, we can say stay off the shoulder, but people will use it. So if somebody's sitting there waiting with their left turn signal on, somebody will come up and go beside them to the right and make their right turn out. I believe that's it on the plan. I can answer any questions, or at least try to, that anybody has at this point.
I guess I would just, I don't have anything to add or to contradict with what this gentleman said, but maybe you could also just explain the existing conditions as far as queuing and stacking and the proposed conditions with the Taco Bell?
Yeah, we had, both in our study and then a little bit of just a abbreviated analysis to go along with that, we looked at two different conditions. One with if a sit-down restaurant was just to reuse that building that's there as it is, Denny's comes back or whatever it might be, we use that trip generation and analyze the intersection. And for that, the worst case queuing, the 95th percentile queue, meaning it's only going to happen 5% of the time. It's 95th percentile. Kind of a worst case scenario. It's 40 feet. A typical vehicle is considered 25 feet for that queuing, so it's not quite two vehicles. We ran the same analysis with the Taco Bell traffic, and that 40 feet goes to 100 feet, which would be 4 vehicles. We'd already talked about with the preemption, there's no reason up to more than 10 vehicles should not be able to utilize the green time that's available there. So yes, it is more. It's a little bit more traffic, but it's handled at the intersection and handled by the signal.
Matt, you agree with them numbers?
Yes.
Okay. I think at this point, before we have questions, maybe we should, I see a lot of members of EMS out there, and I heard they have an engineer to speak on their behalf. Maybe we should hear their side out first before we start questioning, in case there is questions we have for both sides. They might get answered within that realm. So, do you guys have an engineer or EMS? Oh, come on up. Whoever wants to go first. I didn't grab the list, but I'm sure looking out there, the only people here are EMS.
Yeah, well, the only people are, well, I won't say they're the only people that matter.
You look familiar.
Yeah, Joe Blackburn from Whistler Pearlstein again, and you'll recognize my my lovely Vanna White, Justin Gennati from Dynamic, same cast of characters here. It pains me to be here because I'm usually the applicant's person. I've made all those arguments. I'm not going to sit here and poke holes in them because most of the time I'm making them. But the simple reality is they've done traffic studies. They've done a traffic proposal. I think it's a fair estimation that the township's traffic engineer finds no issue with their proposal. You've heard and seen that Dynamic, on behalf of the EMS, has also done a traffic proposal and impact analysis. And I think it's also fair to say, I won't speak for him, but that there's similarly no opposition on the part of the township traffic engineer to what we're proposing. The only thing that I will say, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Wydrow from the EMS, is that it is accurate that there's a preemption that was installed. It was installed at the time of the Wawa development across the street. But at the time of the Wawa development across the street, there wasn't a fast food drive-through lane being proposed or contemplated at the site. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Wydrow, who can probably speak more particularly to any of their concerns. And I would also reiterate that we do have Justin. I'm sorry?
Because it's the EMS. Just checking, you know. No,
Oh, no.
Name and address.
Feel free to
for
give it.
anyone
I'm
who
happy to.
speaks. No, go ahead, sir.
Gerald Wydrow, 6 Walnut Way, Langhorne. Here as a spokesperson for Pendel Middletown Emergency Squad. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to have a few minutes of your important time. So I'm here as a spokesperson. As you can see, there's about 150 years of volunteer EMS service sitting behind you. Folks that, just like you, dedicate time, energy, sleepless nights to serve the township of Middletown and the surrounding boroughs. Why we're here today is to provide, quite honestly, as you said, the other side of the story. There has been a narrative that, we're somehow against development there. We have worked with Denny's prior to their departure for decades, many a sleepless night sitting there after a call. And quite honestly, the opportunity to have Taco Bell, which is substantially better, is seen as a good thing by many of our membership. Our concern comes down to, quite honestly, the readiness that we have to have for both egress and ingress out of this building. So my name's Jerry. I'm an emergency medicine physician by background. I'm a volunteer at Pendel Middletown Emergency Squad for 40 years. I serve as the volunteer medical director. That's context to say that we're not here just talking about maybes. We're talking about the job that we do every day. Pendel Middletown Emergency Squad has been around for 67 years. We have been in continuous service. We provide care to over 7,000 dispatches per year at 2 stations, our busiest station being the Lincoln Highway Station. As it was talked about, we have had preemption at that light actually long before Wawa. That preemption has been a great tool, but it's a tool. In emergency services, we work in a way with redundancy, whether that's defibrillation, how we treat somebody's heart attack, how we put in an airway. Why that's important is that there should not be one solution or even sometimes 2 solutions to a problem. Now, it was interesting to hear Mr. I think it's Malloy say, we could put a traffic bar down in front. Well, that's never been even talked about. My point is, I don't think we should be talking about the situation in a scenario where, these are what we could do. This should be concrete because in our world, right, seconds and minutes matter. In our world, we deal with the what could happen, right? What if? No one saw a nursing home in Bristol blowing up. And as someone that was there, right, we had to have preparation for that. Well, we talk about, preemption will get it done. Preemption is one tool in the toolkit, and we need others. And we think prior to this being approved, there needs to be a concrete set of guidance that's going to allow us to assure that our emergency vehicles can get in and get out back into our station to safely provide care. Now, we do agree that some striping will help. But any of us who have driven an emergency vehicle with preemption will tell you unequivocally that it sometimes doesn't work. It actually, if there's multiple emergency vehicles coming through, it will recycle. But that means if we have 2 trucks going to a cardiac arrest, there's the potential that it will recycle. Why that matters is a fast food restaurant with these coming through a takeout, the risk of multiple vehicles queuing up, and then there's a concern that they could freeze there and our vehicles could be blocked. When we gave ideas working with Dynamic, it was just that, ideas. All we ask is that we align around ideas that will allow us to provide safe emergency care to the residents of Middletown Township and the surrounding boroughs. We do think that we're getting close. We think that having a don't block the box that's clearly marked, having signage in front of our building that clearly says no parking or no stopping, we think preemption can be a tool, and there have to be some changes and modifications, likely some change to our vehicles that allows that preemption to be activated from inside the vehicle, which is different than using it off of a preemption device that you pick up off the side of a building or a traffic signal. Again, Mr. Malloy brought up maybe some kind of blockage that says you can't go when there's an emergency vehicle responding. Again, this should be concrete, in our opinion, because we don't deal in there's only a 90% chance of happening. We deal with the reality that we have to do the right thing 100% of the time to be able to take care of the patients that we serve. So all we're asking for is, prior to this being approved, there be a clear set of guidelines that we, as the neighbors at Penndale Middletown Emergency Squad, that Dynamic, the township, and the applicant could align around to say, yep, we're all comfortable with this. And then that's how we think that that's going to make for the safest way for this story to end. And again, we are very supportive. Having an abandoned, blighted building next to us is not nice. We have unhoused people there. There's vagrants going through there. There's a lot of trash. Right now, there's a lot of snow. It's not being kept up. So we would love to see development there to get this cleaned up and getting used again. But we don't want to have that at the risk that there could be inability to get out. And again, it only takes one time. Only takes one time that we can't get out effectively. We ask you to put that into your thought process to make sure we're all aligned around a safe, effective way to do this. And we thank you for your time.
I have a question, sorry. Actually, I had a question and now I just forgot it. But
I can help you with that.
No, I have 2 of them. You don't have them, like, I'll just call it like a remote control in your vehicles to activate that preemption traffic light? It's on the building?
So it's a great question. So there's multiple ways to activate preemption. So we actually have a hardwired button inside the building that was many, many years ago installed, because the thought process at that time was when you get dispatched, you'd hit that button and it would change it. But the problem is many things happen, as you can imagine, during that response.
I was under the
We also
understanding when
have
Wawa was there,
tried-
you had the button.
We've tried remotes, but the problem with remotes is that they don't always catch it. And then a third way is what I think the traffic engineer for the applicant had talked about, is you actually have a device in the light bar of our emergency vehicle, but you have to be facing it, right? So that would require you to pull out, position it to face the light. That's the one that works the most. It's called an Opticon. It works the most effectively, but it doesn't work for us because we're facing the wrong way. So it's been proposed.
Right, you come out and turn.
Correct. So, but there are multiple ways. And again, going back to what we started with, redundancy is the most important thing. There should be multiple things to assure that there's never a moment that any of us can't get an ambulance out or an emergency vehicle out. And preemption's part of it, but it can't be the only solution.
My next question, sorry, hold on, Justin.
I apologize.
My next question is, I mean, do you have an estimated time of from when you get a call to when you're opening the garage door, making the turn and heading to the traffic light? I know it's in seconds, but
Right.
is it, because I kept hearing 45-second time on this preemption, and I'm just wondering if that's within the, guidelines or, within a safe time. Do you guys ever have an estimated time of that?
Sure. So, I mean, we do what's called a shoot time, which is from the time that we get the request till we, in the chute, which is coming out of the building, if you
Right,
will.
okay.
So that, usually within, to your point, about 60 seconds, that means, you're walking in, getting to the truck, get the truck started, and getting out. Now, to your point, I think about preemption, though, right? It does come down to, you get in the truck and just do all the things you do. If you hit it and it cycles through, and let's say you get a change, right? The radar room says, look at your update on your MDT before you go. That time, it already could have passed. Now, you could hit it again, but remember, that entire thing cycles again.
Well, that's why I was wondering about the 45 seconds.
And so the problem with preemption is, again, it can't be the only tool. Any of us have used it. We use it all the time. And the problem is it's not perfect, right? It's a great system. We are much safer with it than without it, but it should not be it's become the foundation of this, of the applicant's thing. That's what's going to save them. And the reality is it's one part of it, and it should be, but it needs to be multiple things to assure that we can do this safely.
And
I'm not going to walk away again.
so I'm going to add one more question because I'm learning more as you speak. Do you have any ideas? You're the professional when it comes to this
so
stuff.
I think, again,
You're saying you're looking for other solutions and you want, obviously you want them to be concrete, but do you have any?
Can I actually piggyback on that?
Sure.
I kind of want to pull back to the bigger picture. Where's the sticking point with your suggestion? So I hear that you guys are kind of on the same page with the don't block the box, the stripes, that you agree with a lot of what's been proposed. So I'm trying to understand, where's the sticking point? Is it the width of the driveway at this point?
So-
What is the?
so I think, I'm sorry to cut. I think the sticking point is more that, how this started, honestly, was us having to come and saying, we're really concerned about this, right? And what we had hoped was that, the applicant would say, here's all these great solutions. We've proposed many things. Not all of them might be feasible, but they're options. But we still remain concerned. I mean, we believe that a drive-through is not a great thing for there. That's just our personal opinion, but we also understand that it likely is allowable. But we believe that because of the way drive-through comes, and we see McDonald's and we see Dunkin' Donuts and how they queue cars, we think a restaurant's a much better thing. We lived with one there for decades. It worked, no problems. That being said, if it's decided to move forward with that, we think that extra mitigation needs to be done just because of that. Because when cars queue out, we look no further than McDonald's down the street. When they're snaked around there, now put us coming out and there's cars sitting there, and every one of us who drives an emergency vehicle will tell you that when you get behind them, they panic. And so we're just saying that you ask, what, again, initially it was proposed many, many meetings ago, like the manager would come out and flag people down, which is obviously not viable, but maybe some kind of a prohibition that says you can't go during this. Again, I don't know enough about that, but what we do believe is that there are other options that we just all have to explore them. And I think there's a sense that somehow we're the problem, but the reality is we're only advocating. This is not not in our neighborhood. We're just saying we have to advocate for the people that we serve and the people that don't even know they need us yet. That's what it comes down to.
Just to piggyback, so Justin Giannotti with Dynamic Engineering. This sketch was prepared by Dynamic Traffic, which is our traffic company. I think your question was, what is not being done that we asked? So it was the applicant's traffic engineer walked through some of the proposed recommendations that we made after reviewing their sketch. One of the things that was hinted at but not fully explained was what was proposed was, and it's seen in the red, and I think I have, does this work? Yes, it does. I don't know if that works well enough. It's not working. Let's go. Over here. There we go. Right there. That is the existing driveway. What was being proposed there was about a 13-foot widening. There's been a lot of talk about redundancy. So again, I've been on the private side. Most of my work is the private side. We propose don't block the box, which are just stripings on the road. We propose do not enter, signage. We heard the applicant's traffic engineer say, people ignore stuff. They ignore it, they park there, they freeze when an emergency vehicle gets behind them. So that striping, or that additional widening of that intersection is redundancy. So yes, if preemption works, great. If the don't block the box works, great. If all those fail or some of those fail and an emergency vehicle can't leave the site because there's cars queued there, that additional widening allows an ambulance to bypass any of the cars parked at the intersection and get out onto the road. They will have lights and sirens going at that time. They will be safe. They will be able to make the movement onto the road If everything fails and everything doesn't work, they will still be able to leave the site. So
And what is the argument that it cannot be widened?
The
What is
argument-
reason?
sorry to cut you off. The argument was that there could be a conflicting movement if there was an emergency vehicle trying to make a left-hand turn while a car queued in the lane would be making a right. Again, this would be used as a last resort. The preemption would be working. And emergency vehicles operate through lights without preemption all the time. So that is the point of having lights and sirens. They know how to do so safely, and they will be sure to make that turn safely. But without that access, without the driveway, if that drive-through is pumping out cars, and we heard there could be 4 cars in that lane with the don't block the box, if that's failing and not working, there could be a blockage. That is just an option and a recommendation to provide that level of redundancy. I mean, we're dealing with emergency vehicles, seconds matter.
Jim, that street, right? So is that legal? Who owns the street? Paper Street? Is it owned? I guess what I'm asking is, could that street be widened if it was, or, is it a township street or?
I don't have the full dynamics, but I mean, my understanding is if it's widened, it's going onto their actual properties at that point, beyond any kind of right of way that's there. Because is it a paper street right now?
So it's our understanding that it was vacated. Our survey has the deed, date, and everything. So it's our understanding it was vacated. So it's no longer a street. Our plan's called out as a previous street, Walnut Avenue, I think. But it's my understanding it's been vacated. So it's not a street, it's private property.
So then each of you owns basically to the middle, each property owner owns to the middle there. Is there currently an easement?
Yes.
Between, okay.
Yes. So there's an easement if the Alta survey should have been included with the submission, but if it wasn't, if you look at my plans, both driveways, there's easements along the entire driveway and around the back of our property. So there's cross-access easements everywhere. And I also wanted to clarify one of the comments that, or one of the items that we testified to. So the 4 cars that are stacked up at that driveway, that's in an ideal scenario where we don't have our front driveway. So 95% of our cars are going to be using the main drive aisle parallel to Lincoln for Taco Bell. So you're going to have 1 car at the stop sign, hopefully no cars in the don't block the box, and then the rest of the stacking will actually take place in the driveway in front of the Taco Bell. So they shouldn't stack into the shared driveway. Because if you're leaving the drive-through lane, you're not going to make a left, go around the entire Taco Bell property to get into that driveway. So that's just one item I wanted to bring up. While it says 4 cars, we think those cars will kind of be snaked into the Taco Bell property and shouldn't, on a regular basis, impact the EMS side of the driveway.
Okay. Now, I guess we'll ask, Pete, any questions?
Yeah, just kind of to take a step back here, it does seem, aside from this driveway situation, it does seem that there are a lot of waivers being requested, and I'm not convinced that they're all need to be, but be that as it may, you're changing a Denny's to a Taco Bell. I get that. When it comes to this driveway, I think I'm still confused. There's still some confusion on my part as to, initially I didn't get the difference between the Denny's and the Taco Bell, but I guess the element of difference is the drive-through, right? That the drive-through would generate, and I'm sort of saying this with question marks at the end, the drive-through is going to generate a sufficiently more traffic through that intersection than the Denny's ever did. Is that true?
Regardless of if it's a drive-through, the use fast food restaurant or fast food with drive-through is a higher traffic use than what a sit-down restaurant is, according to ITE.
Okay.
So the existing square footage of the sit-down restaurant was compared to the proposed square footage of a fast
So
food
there's
restaurant.
more
with
traffic
drive-through.
competing for the right to use that driveway.
Yes.
And that's going to conflict with the emergency vehicle operation. Is that it in a nutshell?
Well, they're going to use the driveway. I don't know that.
I see Mr. Malloy's waving.
There's-
He said no.
Just at the term conflict. I mean, they're both going to use a driveway, and the whole presentation tonight, preemption, that kind of stuff, is to put into place measures to prevent a conflict. So that's why I grimaced.
So, and that's where, to me, where my confusion, I guess, is it seems like a moving target. What satisfies this? What solves this?
Well, let me just,
Because I don't think anyone here, I don't want to
Right.
speak for everyone, no one here is going to say, hey, there's emergency vehicles, it's a life safety situation, and we're not going to vote for that, you know.
Sure.
What's in the highest
Understandable,
best
understandable.
interest
So-
that satisfies the E EMS?
well, back in late 2025, when we first sat down with the EMS and the township, we had the exact same discussion, and the onus was put on the applicant. There's this idea that we need to be saved. There's nothing to save about this application. It's very straightforward. Special exception, commercial district, fast food, permitted in the thing, land development's clean.
Okay.
Okay? PennDOT, it's totally approvable, driveway's done. So we were asked, the onus was put on the applicant, well, figure out. So we suggested the things that we're talking about tonight. And then, at the meeting, we learned sometime in December that the applicant had hired Dynamic, then we waited for a plan, and sort of that's why we were delaying this meeting, because we thought when the Dynamic plan was put on the table, that was the EMS then telling us now what they wanted to satisfy the mitigation or whatever we needed to make the intersection safe. So the Dynamic plan and our agreement to it is that certainty. The only thing that we're opposing, because we think, and look, Summerwood is not a company. This is not a money thing. This is not, we don't want to, put the cash out to do the driveway. This is a safety issue. Our traffic engineers explained why there could be a conflict, and I don't hear the township engineer stomping up and down demanding a driveway. So, I would just say, we have done a lot in the past 6 months, 4 or 5 months, right? To sort of solicit comments, figure out what we can do, and then agree to everything.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Eberly, you're the traffic engineer for Taco Bell. Yes. Correct? And Mr. Giannotti, you're the traffic
I
engineer.
don't want to, sorry to interrupt you. I want to say one thing while it's still in my mouth, Joe.
Yes.
You listed a laundry list of things that were clean and everything. You were legal on this, legal on that. All your things were in. But the one thing we're up here that we think about too is Taco Bell going to be a good neighbor to Middletown Township? Because to us, that's an important part. That counts as just as much as everything else. And in your speech, all I heard was, we're legal with this, we're legal with that. Well, how about being a good neighbor?
We're fantastic.
To comment,
I can
you didn't mention that once the whole time.
I can absolutely, and I thought that was evident from the plan, the team that we brought tonight.
Whether your plan's
So-
compliant
so
or not,
here we go.
there's an issue that goes beyond that. And
So-
it is with EMS personnel, which I agree with Pete. We're not going to sit there and jeopardize, a few seconds of somebody's life because someone wants to get a taco. That's not going to happen.
That's
So
not- that's
you
not
have not
what's-
mentioned being a good neighbor to the township is, right now, here's what I want to say. You guys hash this out yourselves and come back to us.
I agree.
Work
And
out a plan.
while we're on that, can we actually have our traffic engineer? Can you speak to, do you have any problems with widening the driveway? Do you see a conflict? Do you agree? Can you weigh in on the dispute and give us kind of the middle solution here?
Sure. I think, we reviewed the application as it was submitted, and we did not have any concerns with the driveway. The driveway functions as a driveway should. Their traffic study shows that the intersection will operate as it should. In this situation, you have the EMS facility there as well. What we saw was that there's preemption, that there was discussion of improving the preemption, working with the EMS to do what needed to be done. At the time, we didn't know what the exact operations, how the EMS functions, is the preemption working? When they come out, do they come out with their sirens and lights flashing? And how does the preemption currently work for them? Do people clear out now with the 2 cars that are stacked there? So there was a lot of things. So we kind of left it to the 2 engineers to kind of work it out, because we don't necessarily have a concern with either proposal. The question is, what makes the most sense? When an emergency vehicle, my understanding is, if they come up behind you with their lights and their sirens on, you're supposed to move to the right and get out of their way. So is there a potential for conflict with widening the driveway? If the driveway's widened and we have a right turn and a through left turn lane, maybe those 4 cars that are stacked go down to 2 cars that are stacked. So there's a lot of kind of variables, and we're kind of okay with either. Obviously, PennDOT would also need to weigh in if the driveway is widened. It's a state road. Driveways are permitted by PennDOT, so that comes into play. The question is, at the end of the day, is preemption going to improve the situation as far as handle the situation? And I say handle the situation when the EMS come out of their garage, has the traffic flushed out. If it hasn't, then maybe there's something else that needs to be done. I guess the question is, what needs to be done? Is widening the driveway one possibility? Maybe that's a condition of your approval that says, hey, look, let's construct this and see what happens. Let's work with the striping, work with the preemption, try to get it working. And then if not, maybe approach PennDOT to see about widening the driveway. That's kind of our thoughts. But again, we kind of left it to them to work things out. We really didn't have a strong position one way or the other. I think we're fine with either way the driveway's configured.
So this is a driveway, but can it also not be looked at as a 4-way signalized intersection? And should they be treated as no different than any other 4-way signalized intersection? When there's traffic there and an emergency vehicle's behind you, you get out of the way?
That's exactly how the signal and the intersection functions just like any 4 other legged intersection. It's permitted by PennDOT. There's a traffic signal permit plan for it, the operations, and the addition of the Taco Bell traffic to this intersection, it still functions appropriately.
Right, if I'm leaving Taco Bell, I have to wait at a light, if it's red or not, to leave that intersection.
Correct.
But if there's a way to enhance that, that's what we want to hear. What is the best idea? I guess what we're trying to get at is what solves this?
Well, I guess you really won't know until you implement. I guess we can ask how it's working now. If there's 2 cars stacked there and EMS comes out and there's 2 cars there and they turn on their lights and their sirens, or do they hit the preemption, traffic flushes out and then they turn their lights and sirens on? I'm not actually sure what they do, so maybe that would be good to hear.
Just extremely briefly, just because I think I've heard at least 3 of you ask the question. The answer from EMS's standpoint as to what solves this, and I think the only thing that the applicant hasn't committed to implementing is the widening of the driveway. So I hope that distills it, and I hope I stated accurately what I heard earlier.
Is that what would solve it?
That is what the EMS feels. They've commissioned their own traffic engineer to come up with solutions. Those are reflected on this plan. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard earlier is we're fine with all of them except for the widening. And it is therefore the widening that remains the outstanding issue. Again,
So why is that an issue? Yeah, why is that an issue?
Well, the issue is because they feel that, again, goes back to
No,
redundancy.
they're saying it's an issue.
Oh, why is that an issue?
Widening the driveway is an issue. Why is it an issue?
Because we think it's dangerous.
Explain.
Joe?
Yeah, but I don't,
Joe.
Go ahead.
There's a couple pieces to it. You're introducing a lane that isn't, it would be striped off. It would have gore markings in it because it's only to be used when there's somebody there in the ambulance to get past. If the preemption is on, there's a green light there. So the person sitting there may freeze. I mean, it happens.
Sure.
If the ambulance goes to go around it and at that point the car decides to go and the ambulance wants to turn left and the car wants to turn right, turn into each other.
But it's not a lane. It's an area where if you occupy that area, you'll be ticketed, you'll be fined. It's not for traffic. other than emergency vehicles.
Right, but that is the scenario. The emergency vehicle is using it,
Yeah.
and they're the ones in it, which is fine. But if that car decides to go with their green light during the preemption, while that emergency vehicle is there,
Someone
it becomes a conflict of right-of-way.
But isn't that a situation that an EMS crew is trained to deal with every single day as they're coming in and out of intersections? And I mean, they kind of take a little more caution. I would think if anybody was prepared to go around cars or prepare for cars panicking, it would be an EMS team.
I would think so, but I don't know that I can. I think that's, yeah. I don't know that I can answer for them, but I would assume so, yes.
What about like a gate, an arm on the one side, just so cars don't go on that?
On the drive-through, sure, we'd do a gate.
No,
you know?
I'm saying right at the traffic light where you're going to add that extra 13 feet.
Could you put up the site plan?
What? No, an arm. So they could come straight out if they widen that out. You put a, and you know when you.
Explain that on the plan. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't stop bar. No, it's like the white wall.
What's that?
It's striped.
This area at the drive-through, there's two stop conditions here. One would be coming out of the drive-through lane as well as the bypass lane that's there. So both of those, anybody coming through there would stop at the end of that area.
Can you talk into the microphone, please?
Apologize, sorry. So this area does have a stop condition there. So it's not people freely flowing out. They're stopping there, they're turning right, they're gonna stop again, and they're not supposed to block that box area that would have signage and the striping for it. If there's nobody at the signal, there's one spot for them to come out and wait that's outside the box, so in front of the box and at the stop bar for the signal. And then anybody else should, again, we can't guarantee, we all know people do things that they want in their cars, no matter what we plan for. But they should be stopped either in the drive-through or if there's a spot open, come out into the park lane and stop again before going out to the signal. So any queuing, what we said about was with the analysis with Taco Bell, it's 100 feet queue. 4 vehicles is what that equates to. And it would be one at the stop bar, and then on site of the Taco Bell would be the other 3, whether it's in the drive-through or straight back the parking area.
Yeah, I'm saying if you widen in front of the ambulance.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. That's on the red drawing. That's on that red drawing that was up here before.
The widening that we're talking about, that the ambulance is here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
But
you-
that's why we're saying
And I'm saying put an
if
arm-
if the ambulance comes this way and the car decides to go that way, there could be a conflict. That's what we're saying, you know? But
Does any of the traffic engineers think that PennDOT would approve that widening? Like, does anyone think that PennDOT would go for that?
we think possibly not.
Justin?
That's what our
Okay, because we're getting everybody standing up here and we want to try and rein this in a little bit, but.
Good. How you doing? Yeah. So look, I've done a lot of driveway designs. I've done a lot of fast food, convenience stores. There's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of instances where you do have a driveway wider than what is necessary for a normal lane width. Usually it's for truck traffic getting in and out of a site. They need larger radii to make the turn, so that it turns into a larger radius at the entrance. So you heard it, there's going to be one car available to stack at that light. All the other ones are going to have to be outside the box on site. That is not likely going to happen, even though that is being proposed. But I mean, again, that's what it's designed, so that's what's being proposed. Again, this is about redundancy. This is about if there are cars stacked there, if there do people panic when the preemption comes on, or if the preemption doesn't work, it gives another means of exit. If they're worried about it being striping for the widening. We've done them out of concrete. We've done them that a dissimilar material keeps other cars off of them. They can make them out of rumble strips, real low to the ground to keep and dissuade traffic from being on top of it. Again, these are, you can, I mean, mountable is a different but you can just make it concrete on the ground with rumble strips on top of it that you can drive over it, that cars are not using it for normal traffic. There's a number of things we can do. Your first question, would PennDOT approve it? I'm assuming that they have a PennDOT application in for the right-in, right-out driveway. I mean, it would just be a modification to that. We could have that conversation with PennDOT. Again, these are recommendations. It's about redundancy. It's about it just being emergency vehicles and ensuring their access without being prohibited or making access through that light for any condition. That's really what this is about.
Would that satisfy you guys if it rests on PennDOT and they say no? Would that put a pin in it? Is it fair to leave it on PennDOT's shoulders?
You're reading my mind. Yeah, that's exactly
getting
what.
late.
Yeah, I know. No, we were just talking about it. If PennDOT approves it, we'll do it. If PennDOT doesn't approve it, can we?
We're back to square one.
Well,
do all the other things that they've.
yeah, we got to do all the. We're doing all the other things, you know.
Should be done.
And this is the only new thing that was even discussed through 5 months, this driveway thing. So everything else was always on the table, striping, everything. So, yeah, we're totally willing to do it if PennDOT will approve it. If you guys will make it a condition of your recommendation, we'd love to do that. We'll engage PennDOT, discuss the widening in some way, shape, or form, some depressed curbs, rumble strip, like Justin said, something like that.
And I'm going to talk to the gentleman from the EMS again. A couple quick more questions. Earlier, when you were up, you said when the gentleman discussed a arm coming down, you kind of were leaning towards that might have been a good idea.
Well, we'd never heard of that before, so that's the first. We had heard many meetings ago that, the manager will come out and stop traffic, which we knew was silly.
That one's ridiculous, yeah.
But this was put in, is that an option? I don't even know if that's an option. I guess maybe let's go full circle, and thank you. And first, clarity again, I forget your name again, but the only thing that was ever talked about was preemption and putting a box at the end, right? We came back and said, hey, we'd like to put something in front of the building that says, do not stop here, because now there's going to be more potential for that. And they said they would do that. Clarity needs to be, we need clarity on that. Like when that paint wears off, who's going to put it back on, right? That all needs to be, and I come back to, we want concrete things. If PennDOT says no, then we believe, yeah, there needs to be another option, because redundancy is what we need.
But at that point, if PennDOT says no, and that's one of our contingencies, and we approve the Taco Bell, then am I correct in saying that, that there is no more negotiating on what to do because it was approved the way it was when we approved it tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we
put a condition in
contingencies,
saying
but there's
pending PennDOT's approval on this, and PennDOT doesn't approve it. Does that wipe out the entire approval for the whole Taco Bell, or does that just wipe out that part?
that was not how it was proposed. I mean, you could technically do that. That would seem a little.
No, I'm asking how would it work, because I want to
So
make
we
sure.
would make, what was proposed was they would propose to do all of the traffic suggestions from Dynamic. If the only one that they're really concerned about that PennDOT
widening
would not approve would be the widening. But what they're saying is if PennDOT does not approve that, then they'll just do the rest of them and that's it.
And you're okay with that, sir?
Well, we're not. I mean, I think we've come back to that.
That's what I'm wondering.
But then what would your other suggestion be?
Well, and exactly, right? So now things get thrown out, right? So, hey, we'll put a bar there. Right? That's never even been talked about, a control arm or something like that. And it was brought up today by the applicant. Okay, great idea. I guess my point is maybe more discussion needs to be had before this is approved, just for that reason. Because if someone reaches out to PennDOT and they say that will never get approved, then a conversation happens and says, okay, then what's another way to mitigate that? What we're talking about now is, well, don't worry about it. What we keep hearing is, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. And it may be okay, but we're glad that there's concern about our driving, but every time we drive with lights and sirens, there's risk. And again, if PennDOT approves it, we're quite comfortable navigating. We go on shoulders and opposite side of traffic all the time. That's not our concern. Now, if PennDOT won't allow it to happen, which could happen, we still believe strongly that there needs to be some additional mitigation because
But you don't have any suggestions on what the
what we
mitigation
proposed
is?
there was what we thought was the most reasonable. We thought that there was reason to believe that PennDOT would think it was okay based upon all the things that happen. It's going to be different
But
material.
you're going on a whim. You don't know if they're
don't
going to
know.
approve it. And then, like we were just asking, we say yes to everything and they agree to everything on your thing, but PennDOT denies that extra lane. They do everything else that you want on your list. You're not getting the extra lane. And then you're standing there telling us, but you still want more beyond that. And they have, they're claiming it's been 6 months that they've been back and forth with this. I do know that they've canceled a few times. It's been canceled on our agenda. So at one point, we have an obligation to respond to their request. So
It was only December when we had a sit down between the municipality and the applicant. So 6 months is 6 months, but it was only December that we had a meeting with them. So whatever the cause for 6 months was, it certainly wasn't Penndale Middletown Emergency Squad.
Let me ask you this, if PennDOT does deny it, short of anything else with that road widening, is there any solution you'd be happy with? Is that really what everything is hinging on? And if they don't, you don't even want that drive-through there? Is that kind of your position?
Well, again, we're reasonable people. And although people tried to paint otherwise, we're reasonable people. We're just saying that we think you need to have redundancy. That's why we thought this was the best, knowing full well it may not. Something to stop people from sitting in that spot, because again, a bunch of cars sideways sitting there, which is what again, look no far. The beauty of it is we have McDonald's to prove what happens when they're all sitting there sideways, queued to try to get out on the Lincoln Highway. And that's what our concern is. All we can give you is that. Our guidance is that we think more mitigation needs to be done. We think the widening is the single best way to do that because it gives us an opportunity to get out.
And then it goes back to
And then if they
the
say-
what ifs.
they
So
say no to
at
that-
this point, I don't know, I'll ask the rest of the members, but sir, is there a chance, and I know you said you've been trying to be up here several times, right? What if we give this, why is everybody looking at me like they want to shoot? Is there any way you can work with the EMS and come back here? And Jim, would we be able to get them on the agenda for next month? We give this 30 days.
One more thing.
Go ahead, but I'm asking, no,
counting
wait a minute. I'm asking-
1, 2, I don't know if you're an engineer, 3 of 4 Joe engineers in the room. And no one says anything except what's on the dynamic plan. That's what we did, sir. We waited. We said, what do you want? We're fresh out of ideas. Give us some. They
Now
gave
we're
us
going
some.
on the-
Now
you're-
we're at a
You're good
point.
with the dynamic plan. We understand
Now,
that. You're
but
good with
that's
that.
their plan.
Right, and
right?
we
But-
understand
but
100%
now we're
that
at a
you're okay
point
with that.
where, okay, if we're going to move forward, I'd rather move forward with PennDOT in the driveway and have a condition that if anybody comes up with anything else that's reasonable, we'll do it. We'll do it. Because here's the problem. We've asked and asked and asked, and that's the same answer we've gotten. We think there's mitigation to do, but we don't know what it is, and that's just not going to work anymore because we're going to come back in 30 days and they're not going to have any more ideas. And we're going to lose another 30 days, not going to see whether this driveway works.
Nope. So at that point, see, you got to understand that you've been doing all that behind the scenes. We have not known any of this was going on.
That's
Whether it was
unfortunate.
1 month, 5 months, 6 months. We didn't know how long you've been negotiating with the EMS or how we're learning all this tonight. Everything's the first time for us here. And now that we know this, we can turn around and come up with can you work this out based on, let's go with the idea that PennDOT's going to say no. Let's just take that. We're going to start with PennDOT says yes, you agree to it. We're going to move on with the driveway, the extra driveway putting in. But in the interim that if PennDOT does say no, and it could be a 50-50 chance that PennDOT says no, then I would almost say that the EMS is on notice to work out something they agree to within the next 30 days. And then you come back to us and our discussion, you'll be the fastest one on that agenda that night. Now,
The only thing I would say is it's not on them to work something out. They need to give us something concrete, another solution. They need to sit down with their engineers another 30 days now and come up with something else on the list that we gave them 60 days to do.
Can this
Justin.
condition trigger if PennDOT says no? That they come back, or is it moot at that point? Can we just say if PennDOT says no, then we need to circle back and work something out? How can we get past the sticking point?
Can I just ask, because it's to your question, what is the timing? It's ridiculous. What is the timing of PennDOT discussions if we were to leave here tonight with a condition that you're talking about? Like, what's the timing on that?
that's a good question. Would PennDOT be able to answer this in 30 days?
No,
No.
probably not. No, it would be answered in final land development approval before the board, probably. You know,
Typically, we
Come on.
we put
Yeah,
the
come on.
PennDOT approval as a condition.
Condition.
of-
I get it. I get it. And then
final
we've
land.
heard a lot of
They take-
discussion
they-
now on this.
PennDOT just
Now,
takes-
we're at the point where I don't know what to do. I mean, we're at the point where everybody's hinging on what PennDOT's going to say. And if PennDOT says no, there's going to be some unhappy people here. But on the flip side, we're hearing that the unhappy people have not agreed to any other resolutions but everything else that's on their plan. So that leaves us in a predicament. That leaves us to the point where we cannot hold the applicant up any more, much more time, right? Jim, we're on a timer on this one?
If they agree to another waiver from the MPC requirements, then you can extend that time. But yes, there's always a clock on a land development application.
May I, if you don't mind? Joe DePascal from Summerwood. You mentioned neighbor, right? So we're going to be their neighbor. We have cross access. We have cross easements. We're going to live together. We have to live together, right? As opposed to your prior application where you were rezoning and doing all those things and you were concerned that you were going to get bait and switch somewhere or whatever. There's no bait and switch here, right? I want to build a Taco Bell. I've agreed to play nice with my neighbor. We're going to give them what we can give them. None of us sitting in this room, including PennDOT, which I might be retired before they answer the question, we don't know what's going to happen. We build our store. We see what happens with the traffic. I don't want anybody to die, obviously, right? All of us, live with EMS and emergency vehicles all the time. We live here, right? We all live here. That's not an issue. We will fix something if it needs to be fixed. We don't know if it needs to be fixed. We don't know what's going through there. Denny's was there, now they're not there. It's empty. There's nobody in that driveway. And the reality is, if you look at my plan, 90% of my traffic is going to stay on my site. It's not going to be in there until it gets in the intersection, which is fully signalized, preempted, approved by PennDOT, based on a Wawa across the street, by the way, right? So those conditions are what they are. I'm going to add to them, absolutely. Hopefully a lot, because I'm going to be successful. But we're more than happy to address these things as we go forward. We're going to be living next door to these guys, right? So we're not trying to get away with something, and we're not trying to skirt our responsibilities. What we're saying is, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in that light, at that signal, with that traffic. And it's going to be different 5 years from now than it is today, right? That was a flashing yellow light for my entire life, right? Now it's a signal. So it's behaving differently. Everything about that road has changed, right? So I would just suggest to you that we're not going anywhere. I already own that property, by the way, and we want to build a store there and be part of that community, which includes the EMS. So, just want to put that out there.
It seems like all of our powers to be are having a little gathering there, so I'll wait a few minutes to see what they come up with. No.
Sorry, we're trying to come up with something here. What I thought you said, okay, but I think I misspoke. So correct me, okay? I said if the board recommends approval, we would accept a condition or look at a condition where, let's just say, irrespective of the PennDOT approval of the driveway, okay? Whether the PennDOT approval gets done or not, and we will seek PennDOT approval for the driveway, the engineers, Township, EMS, and Summerwood, traffic engineers, will meet in the next 30 days and come up with whatever that other thing is.
Plan B.
Maybe not even Plan B. Maybe it's something else that they just want, you know? And we'll look at it, and in good faith, and you know, Joe just spoke, you know what we did, we agreed to everything else, we had legit concerns about the thing. We'll 99.9% most likely, and I hear that it's probably not going to be anything extreme anyway. So is that good?
Maybe, I'm not sure. I'll say what I think, and then you guys can tell me if it's the same thing. PennDOT condition, or PennDOT approval as a condition of the widening, if, and I guess this is where I'm not sure, if they say no, somewhere down the line, which is gonna be down the line, then we get the engineers back in a room, and as a condition of approval, they just gotta figure it out. Because it's not gonna be a PennDOT issue at that point. PennDOT has kicked it out of their jurisdiction,
Right.
so we gotta have our traffic engineer, their traffic engineer, and Pannoni agree to whatever that potential Plan B is.
And the thing that I'm saying is, I think the only distinction is, I think we need to do that Plan B now.
Yeah.
I agree. We can.
That's what I said. You always got to have a Plan B. So we're looking at a Plan B pending PennDOT says no, and it's a Plan B that all parties can agree on.
Well, yeah, I agree we can get that Plan B going, but I don't want it to be at the expense or in lieu of a legitimate effort to advance the PennDOT approval of the widening.
No, the way I'm hearing Mr. Malloy say it is, this is Plan A. This is what is going to be approved, but there's a condition of the approval that within the next 30 days, you're going to come up with a Plan B, and that Plan B would only go into effect if Plan A is denied by PennDOT.
That is fine. I'm saying if you come up with something else, though,
Well, that's
look
always
at that.
a-
We'll
that-
look at that too,
Yeah,
because
if-
that's how.
If for some reason Plan B is
good we are
better
here.
in the next 30 days.
We can't even get to Plan B here.
Plan A plus. Plan A plus.
You lawyers can't even agree on Plan B, and now you want to go to C?
I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, look, there's going to be a
Either way, we'll
scoping.
work together,
Yeah, there's
you
going to
know?
be a scoping meeting, and I understand we're not going to get, but you'll have a scoping meeting in 30, 45 days. I think we'll have a good idea as to how realistic Plan A is.
How's the
They'll get
EMS feel about this?
He represents him.
Yeah, you might as well come on up. Oh, this is the last time, because I'm pulling a motion right after this, but
No,
how
I
does
mean,
the EMS feel?
Again, these are going to, they're going to be our neighbors. We want to be good neighbors. We're just here to advocate for our responsibility to you and the municipality. We believe strongly that we need multiple layers. We think what's been proposed is reasonable. We all know it potentially could not happen, and we do think something else. Our job is to be here to advocate and also to inform. Multiple layers need to be done, and that's why you don't want a doctor doing traffic engineering. You want the engineers to do that. So this sounds like a very reasonable thing. We think this is the best plan. If that doesn't happen, we'll come up with Plan B and hopefully not a Plan C. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Then I think, no more questions, right? Nobody's got any more questions? Because it's like getting late here. It's past my bedtime. Pete, anything? No. Okay, I'm going to need some verbiage on, it would be item G at one point, Jim, when we get to it, but I'll wind up the rest of this here. I want to make a recommendation of approval for S/LD number 25-6. Application of proposal. Can I stop 1 second? There is one thing on my mind, and I don't mean to slow this meeting down anymore. But I did have another concern, which I don't know if anyone thought about. let's hypothetically say the plan gets approved tonight. I have a little bit of concern on the construction, the demolition and the construction of the new building impeding the EMS. Is there any measures put in place for that? You know, are you going to be fencing up around the property so that everything stays within the fenced area when you're demolition and doing construction? Are the construction, there's when it comes to deliveries to build your new store, is all your trucks going to go inside that fenced area, not pulling alongside the road where it would maybe block the EMS? Is that something I have to mention?
Well, that's usually in the building code and the building permit phase that will all be taken care of. So when they're going to do the demolition even, they got to get building permits and follow the regulations in the building code in order to
And the E&S approval,
inspections,
and
yeah.
E&S approval deal with where the trucks enter and all that kind of
I've
thing.
taken many deliveries on job sites where the truck just pulls up, gets out, goes and looks for who he's got to deliver it to.
I get
Here
that
we
we
are
can't-
sitting
we
4,
can't-
5, 15 minutes with a maybe possible tractor trailer blocking the exit of the EMS.
Well, I understand that they're not following the regulations.
They're
We
not
can't
supposed to do
be
it,
there all
but
day.
It does happen.
Yes,
But it does happen. So I don't know if we had to put anything into that before I go any further. Okay, then, I'm gonna start over again. Recommendation of approval for S/LD number 25-6. Application proposing the construction of a 2,700 square foot Taco Bell with a drive-through at 640 East Lincoln Highway, Lincoln Drive, Langhorne, PA 19047. It's on Bucks County Tax Map Parcel 22-041-026. Recommendation is based on a plan entitled Langhorne Taco Bell Preliminary and Final Land Development, comprising 9 sheets dated June 10th, 2025, and last revised October 15th, 2025. Plan is prepared by Brian Cleary, PE of the Pettit Group, LLC of Sewell, New Jersey. Recommendation is further based on the compliance with the comments provided. A, November 21st, 2025, letter from Isaac Kessler, PE of Remington and Verdict, Middletown Township's engineer. B, November 21st, 2025, letter from Matthew D. Johnston, PE of Pannoni Associates Incorporated. They are Middletown Township's traffic and transportation engineer. July 11th, 2025, review letter from the Bucks County Planning Commission. November 10th, 2025, letter from Alan Welsh, Middletown Township Fire Marshal. November 25th, 2025, letter from Middletown Township Environmental Advisory Council. The requested waivers on site plan sheet 3 of 9 of the land development plan. And how do I word this last one, Jim? G.
Applicant will seek PennDOT approval. If approval is not granted, then applicant will work with neighboring EMS property for alternative solutions. So, no? I don't- All right.
Yeah, and
Yeah, we'll work with, hold on a sec.
so we have a record of what was kind of agreed upon here. If this is not exact language, by the time we would give any kind of preliminary final approval from the supervisors, I will have worked out language with the attorneys for both sides on that.
All right. My handwriting's terrible. I know. Ugh.
Okay, I'm back. Item G, applicant will seek PennDOT approval. If approval is not granted, then applicant will work with neighboring EMS properly for alternative solutions. With that all said, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? I'll second. All right, Pete, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I oppose. We have one opposed. But motion passed. Hopefully you guys work all this out. Have a good night, gentlemen. Hold on, is that your sheet?
That's all this man, this is, yeah.
Oh, okay. Review of zoning hearing board. Jim, anything important on here, on the review of zoning hearing board that pertains to us in the future?
No, actually, the sheet that you have, the actual public notice, is all residential in nature. Even if they were all granted, you would never actually see them as for any kind of like land development pursuit.
At that point, motion to adjourn meeting? Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.